There's been multiple significant developments in the Mercedes-Benz high-powered charging network deployment, and it's very clear that what has occurred is there's a phased rollout, that the initial phase came to a conclusion basically halfway through this year. This time last year is when phase one started, and then it kind of meandered on. We were getting multiple reports of new stations opening. Then we were told that that was the maximum number of stations they were going to be doing in the first phase. And then there was some cleanup work which was occurring, which I'll get to in a second. But we're now very clearly in what I'm calling phase two. And let me explain what I'm talking about. So in phase one, 13 Buc-ee's in the Southeast United States were outfitted with Mercedes-Benz high-powered charging hardware, which was the 400 kilowatt ChargePoint Express Plus units. Those were dispensers paired with dual power bricks, able to do load sharing at 200 kilowatts per stall, or a single stall receiving 400 using an 800 volt car. So basically top of the line hardware. Throughout the beginning and middle part of this year, those 13 stations, after having been opened, slowly went through a process where they were being re-engineered and they were closed. I had reports from people both on PlugShare and people I knew who were stopping at these stations saying, hey, these stations are closed. And there was cones up and construction going on. And what they were doing during that time is they were adding additional stalls for reasons which we were not aware of why that decision was being made. Obviously, they were trying to expand the footprint at each one of these locations for reasons which we still don't really know. Assumedly, they're expecting higher demand and they wanted more stalls, or perhaps they had extra hardware which they needed to find places to install or something. I'm not quite sure. During this time also, we had press releases concerning partnerships with Simon Mall and Starbucks in California, going down the I-5 corridor. So far, nothing has transpired from Simon Mall or Starbucks, but those press releases did occur during this phase one. And what you look here is the pricing. The top one is actually a phase two location, but everything else, if you look, it's in the low 50-cent kilowatt, which is rather curiously uniformly priced. Normally, for different areas of the country, you're going to charge different amounts, but these all are right around a penny away from each other, except for Sandy Springs, which has some variable pricing going on, which if you show up at 2 o'clock in the morning, you can get 25 cents per kilowatt hour. During the peak hours of the day, it's 55 cents. So there's, I guess, experimenting with variable pricing. But as you can see, this is the debut flagship location in Sandy Springs, Georgia, which opened on November 16th, 2023. I was actually there on that day. I had caught wind that it was going to be occurring. It turned out to be a invite-only event, so I wasn't able to attend where the event was occurring, but I was on the sidewalk within view of where it was occurring. So I basically watched the whole thing transpire. And then afterwards, I went to this station that you see pictured here and did charge my car and went into the lounge and checked everything out. It was really impressive charging station, which still to this day is still in operation. Also during phase one, Buc-ee's updated their website, and there is now a way to select the locations that have Mercedes-Benz charging hub, which Buc-ee's is calling the universal charger versus the Tesla supercharger. That's what Buc-ee's is calling the CCS1 handles. And as I mentioned, there's 13 of them, but as of the recording of this, the first of the phase two locations, which is actually there's 13 Buc-ee's and then the one Sandy Springs location. So 14 stations in total, but 13 Buc-ee's are now open, which you can sort through and view on the Buc-ee's website. PlugShare also added a Mercedes-Benz insignia for network to select. So that also happened during this time. So Mercedes-Benz is stretching their legs. They are intending to be a CPO of note, significant enough to have their own PlugShare icon. Then we started to hear about phase two locations. This image, I'm not quite sure where it came from. I think it was a press release, but I can't really track it back. Right now I pulled it off a PlugShare post. And I remember seeing something about this in a article, but I can't find any existing press release directly from Mercedes-Benz with this icon, but let's just assume for now that it's accurate. And the open locations is accurate. It's the coming soon locations that we're unsure about. They're talking about the Texas Triangle, which is Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio makes this Texas Triangle. And all the green icons are supposed to be new locations at Buc-ee's that are going to be built during this phase 2. So assumedly that's what we can expect. Also, currently live on the Mercedes-Benz website is this image, which is a very characteristic heat map, probably generated from artificial intelligence, where Mercedes-Benz electric customers have purchased vehicles, if I had to guess. But as you can see, the I-5 corridor and the Interstate 95 corridor are the two that are going to be targeted. The black pips are open locations, and there is the one new one north of Atlanta. This pip right here is Sandy Springs, and a little bit north of there is the new one that just opened up. So assumedly this is what their intentions are, which is incredibly vague, because as you can see, this pip right here is not really near any blue bubble, but it's out there and open and available, so we're not quite sure what Buc-ee's they might be building into. And there was the announcement of the Simon Mall and the Starbucks. So the Starbucks could do this corridor here, the I-5 corridor, but there's really no indication of what's going to be going in on Interstate 95 or around Atlanta, or I guess the Dallas will be the Texas Triangle locations coming into the Buc-ee locations. Outside of Texas, though, there are not many Buc-ee's left, and I'll show what those are in just a second. However, in phase 2, we do have some activity occurring at Calhoun, Georgia. This is the location that is open, and it should be noted that they're OCPPing to ChargePoint, because the initial phase 1 was all ChargePoint hardware, but they have done a pivot to Alpitronic HYC 400s, which are similar, able to output 400 kilowatts. The one difference with the Alpitronic units is they use a silicon carbide rectifier, which provides the CPO a little bit of cost savings because you don't have as much energy loss using silicon carbide as you do with other materials for the rectifier. So the silicon carbide is able to provide a little bit of cost benefit to the CPO because less energy is being lost to what you're actually selling to the customer. And so all the new locations appear to be standardized on the Alpitronic hardware. And this location has 12 stalls, 10 of which are currently open. It looks like one of them is currently undergoing maintenance. And if you want to see where it is, it's just north of Atlanta on Interstate 75. Further, in Auburn, Alabama, on Interstate 85, we see this location with also Alpitronic hyperchargers on site. So those are two Buc-ee's that are getting phase 2 implementations. And here's the remaining Buc-ee's outside of Texas that don't have Mercedes-Benz high-powered charging already, and there's only 4 of them. So in this phase 2, assumedly with that heat map, we're going to be seeing Mercedes-Benz building into other locations. Now, if I had to guess, along the West Coast, they're going to be doing that Starbucks build, and along the East Coast, they're going to be doing Simon Mall and the Buc-ee's partnership. So Simon Mall on the east and Starbucks on the west is all I can guess. But right now I have no indication of the 2 sites that have already been spotted, the one that's open in Georgia and the one that's under construction in Alabama, of where these additional phase 2 locations are going to be, or how much of an extent these phase 2 locations are going to reach. So that's really all the information I have as of this time, but it's clear that phase 2 has begun. It's clear that phase 2 is all Alpitronic, and is unclear, besides these 4 locations, where phase 2 is going to live. I guess in the Texas Triangle locations and these 4 locations, if they do all 4, maybe that will constitute the length and breadth of phase 2, and then they'll spill over into a phase 3 with Starbucks and Simon Mall. So really it's anyone's guess, but it is clear that we are now seeing activity proceed through the Mercedes-Benz high-powered charging network. Thanks for watching.